Morning, everybody. This is Mike Stanger from the Department of Education. So one of the several hats that I do wear there, as many of us do at the Bureau of Career and Tech Ed, is I'm charged or championed in regards to the work-based learning programs at schools. So before we get going today, I just want to give an overview in regards to what I have to do and PDE's point of view in regards to 339. And of course, as we all well know, and then what is in the title is the effects of COVID that it had on these programs. So that's kind of what we're going to be going over with today. We have approximately 80 career and tech centers out there today, excluding, the Philadelphia School District and the Pittsburgh School District. So in each one of those complexes or LEAs, in most cases, you're going to have a co-op coordinator, sometimes two, sometimes three, depending on the size of that particular institution. And that's normally based on how many programs they would have, whereas you would have LCTI up to almost 40 programs. On top of that, we have an individual program such as diversified occupations. This has a zip code 320105, and I looked the other day, we approximately have 30 of those programs approved through PDE that are out there throughout the Commonwealth. There's a couple of them that are waiting approval, and a lot of instances that's all based on teacher certification. Now, some of the areas that we really look at, which I'm going to have our co-presenters talk about today, in particular, when I go out as a team leader for 339, which I have done for, almost 12 years now, some of the areas that I really do look at when we do co-op is these areas. And those areas are the work site, the training plan and agreements, the liability that we have, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, is the added protection that schools will have to do in regards to what Lisa and Ron are going to be talking about. And also, one of the other important things that PDE really looks at is, are the co-op coordinators able to get out every 30 days or once a month in regards to that? And as we well know with COVID today and those barriers that we face, that now has become an issue. But just like with 339 with occupational advisory committees, we really like to see what IT platforms are LEAs using. And that's what's going to be brought out in this session today. So again, we're going to look at these types of learning management systems, or LMS, that Ron and Lisa are going to present to help the schools. So I'm hoping that I see we have about 80 participants, so we probably have a background of many different people out there, regardless if they're co-op or administrators, teachers, or whatever else, but we're going to try to present that as well. And in lieu of that, to dovetail in, we also have as accredited or uncredited presenter, Walt Hansel. If we can get a few minutes with him, he is now the current Pennsylvania Cooperative Ed president, and Walt might have some insight as well in regards to that. So Erin, I will pass the baton on to Lisa and Ron, and go for it.
All right, guys, good morning. Thank you for coming on. Walt, like Mike said, is here with us as well. So as we're going through all this information, if you guys have a question, just feel free to type it in the Q&A, and Walt's going to monitor that. And Walt, as you always do, feel free to interrupt me if something pressing comes up in the chat, and we can take care of that. But Lisa's going to start this off. I'm going to see if I can share my screen, since we're all Zoom experts right now. All right, we should be good.
All right, so as you can see, there's quite a few of us on here presenting. I want to first make you all realize that although we're presenting, we are a group of people that are part of the PCEA, which I'm going to tell you, I'm a very new coordinator. And without this organization, which Walt is the president of, I don't think I could do what I do. So anybody that is becoming a coordinator is a coordinator and you're not a member of this, it's invaluable. A lot of what I was able to do and am helping to do and have learned to do today is because of this organization. So with that being said, we'll move on to the presentation and we'll go over some of the things that we are doing as a school. So the objectives of this presentation in itself is a couple things. First of all, we're both going to talk about the required documentation for co-op coordinators and student learners. We're going to talk about a new form that we all put in place, a COVID-19 form, a little bit about the PCA website and PCA in general, which Walt will share closer to the end. Some capstone lessons, which might be of help to a lot of different people, even past the co-op coordinators. PA State co-op meetings that were taking place back beginning in March and are currently taking place. And also part of our many hats as co-op coordinators, which is recruitment. So Ron, I'm going to have you just pull all of these bullets up and right there. So really, these are things we do as a co-op coordinator. And what I want to talk about is what we do as co-op coordinators takes a team. We do not do this alone in any of our schools. It's important to remember that students are at their best when they have a team of individuals that do it together. And I'm going to tell you this because I'm going to share something that students tend to want to do co-op by themselves. So for example, this year already, I had a student come up in the very beginning of the year and say, Miss, I can just work. I'm just going to come to you and we're just going to start this. And I don't need all this paperwork. I can just quit and get my GED and we don't need it. And he was going to do this and thinking that he could do this. And the reality was he wasn't even 18. So they don't understand the process. And it's very important that we as co-op coordinators and as instructors and as administrators share this process with them. So it's important to follow the steps, and that's what we're going to show you today. So what does that mean as a coordinator when a student wants to do co-op? So there is an approval process from an instructor, and there are different ways to intake students. The assembly and the necessary paperwork, and you're going to see that our two schools do it differently based on a lot of different things. First of all, our student populations and our budgets, student contacts and meetings, student logs and paychecks, which as Mr. Stanger talked about is important when you're talking about 339. As we go through this session and we focus on things, here's the key. No matter what school you're in, there's going to be different processes that work for different populations. So we're sharing two different processes. It's going to all be different, and realize that we will share anything we can with you to help, and anything that maybe we don't do that you do differently. If you're in these PCEA meetings, you can share as well. So very quick, and I'm going to move through this quick. A lot of these things are shared through our PCA meetings. So realize that this isn't all our stuff. This is others. Ron, this is an intake. We both have different intake processes. This, I think, is Lancaster's. Just to show you an application through WUFU. WUFU, I think, is free to a point, but it's also paid. Some of these are expensive. Some of them are not. You need to research them based on what you have, and reach out to any of us. We can get you direction to whatever. So you notice there's a very unique process to this. We're not going to get stuck on these very long. The links are in. You can look at any of the links in our presentation. We will share them with you. But you notice there's specific things that co-op students need to access, and we need to have to move in the direction of co-op or internships. Co-op needs a work permit. We look at date of births. A lot of us look at grades. Some of us we're a CTC AM, PM only model. What's nice is Ron and Walt are a comprehensive, so they may look more at grades and they have full access to grades. We don't as much, but we can get access to grades. And I was just online this morning with homeschool, working with a co-op student that is struggling with a class. So you really need to work with different hats. So one more thing, and then we're going to turn it over to Ron and Walt. Tracking paperwork. And this is where things are really different based on different schools. But the bottom line is you have to track your paperwork. Some people track it by paper. Some people have a very good electronic online database through Google Drive, through Google Forms, through Job Ready, and a lot of different things. So I'm going to turn it over to Ron and Walt, and they're going to talk about their process.
All right, like Lisa said, we share things as a group throughout the state of Pennsylvania with the coordinators in our organization. The documents that we're going to show you, most of them were created as a joint effort, especially the COVID statement in one of our pieces. Although it'll have a different logo on it, they all pretty much carry or include the same things. Similar to what Lisa was saying with the process of onboarding a student onto co-op or an internship, the process is pretty much the same. We just may get there a little differently. So the first thing that Walt and I do, and we were a little ahead of the curve. There we go. We were a little ahead of the curve. Starting a couple of years ago, Walt, I think we started with some Google Forms and then making PDF fillables just to make our documents a little neater. You know, if you guys are in the classroom and you think you get that paper from a student from the diesel program, it comes in with all kind of oil in it and whatnot, or, you know, there's 4 pages that the parents have to sign 2 of them. The student brings 1 of them in. There's missing a signature on the other one. The third one has a pepperoni pizza stain on it. So we kind of got ahead of the curve, even pre-COVID, to start doing stuff digitally through the Google Suite, through Google Classroom. And then the main thing is everything is in one spot and it's nice and clean. I don't have to be in the building to access the information. Walt and I share a Google Drive where if one of his students come in and he's out of the building, I don't have to text him and wait for him to get back to the student. I could just look up the student's file right on our shared drive. Similar to what we did with this presentation. If you think about it, you know, Mike is probably somewhere in Harrisburg, Lisa is in her school, Walt and I unfortunately share an office, but we just created a shared Google Drive and put this whole presentation together, all right? So for us, the first thing that we do is an initial screening form. This is new for us this year, where a student will email us or a technical instructor will email us and say, so-and-so is looking for a job, or the students say, I'm looking for a job, or I do currently work. What is the first step? Very, very similar. Like I said, it's the same exact information that Lisa had on that WooFoo site, and it's just a different form. All right, so we collect the student's email address, their cell phone number, what program they're in, and as we get to the bottom here, we collect the parent or guardian name and their email address, which is very important, which I'm going to get to in a second. So when a student does email us, we just usually reply back and say, hey, we're going to send you a form, fill out as much of the information as you know, but make sure that parent or guardian email address is accurate and they actually check it, because that's what we use to send our forms out to parents or guardians. And then we just ask the similar questions here. Are you currently looking for a job? Do you have a job? If you do have a job, we ask for the employer's information. Similar to the work permit that Lisa's going to talk about a little later. If the student's under 18, all we ask is that they send us a picture of that document and we save it in their file. This year, I'm hoping is the last year where we actually have paper files on everything. What we've done with COVID now is just create a Google Drive folder for every student that's on co-op, and all that information goes in. I didn't see how many administrators are actually in the chat, but if you go back to, if you've been doing this as long as I have, with Mike's 339 reviews, I remember the first one that I sat on where I had to put a whole binder together of all the co-op information. And I believe at the time there was 9 standards. So I had this big crate with 9 different folders in it. And then that crate would go down to our assistant director's office. And I know for each tech program, we have 26 different ones. There were 26 different crates. I mean, you had to be a bodybuilder to move this stuff around. The last 339 review, everything was done on Google Drive, where you just created a folder that was shared and you populated all of your documentation into that one folder. And again, the ease of being able to, I could do this from home, I could do it from the car, I could do it from wherever I am. I don't physically have to be in the building. All right, so that's the first step. The first step is the initial screening form. From there, we put together a pre-evaluation on the student. And again, this is all through the Adobe suite or through Google. The pre-evaluation has generic information on it, the student's birth date, cell phone number, work permit if they need it, do they drive, do they need a parking permit. Towards the bottom here, we also attach the most current report card. Obviously, since school just started, it's just last year's report card where we just verify attendance and take a peek at their academic grades just to make sure they're in good academic standing. All right, this is a returned one. If you notice, and I'm going to show you guys how to do this with a different form, but I have the technical instructor, the parent or guardian signed, our school nurse, and then the academy administrator. When you set this document up, before you send it out for signatures, I could set it in an order in which I want it to be signed. So I usually start actually in this order as it's listed. I start with the tech teacher, we get their blessing first, then the document automatically gets sent to the parent or guardian, we get their blessing, and then we go through the school nurse and the administrators. So that's basically step 2. Step 3 is the final paperwork. All right, and I'm going to show you guys how we actually use this. Again, this is through the Adobe suite. And just to preface this, although this sounds like a sales pitch for Google and Adobe, I don't work for them. But if you do have a contact for the right price, put it in the chat and I will get in touch with them. If they had the right price tag, I would definitely be a spokesperson for them. All right. So again, all through the Adobe suite and through Google, we could have used our student accounting system, which is Skyward, to create these documents. However, in my 20 years being at Bucks County Technical High School, I think we're on our 3rd or 4th student accounting system. And when Walt and I discussed on how we're really going to hone this down and make it user-friendly, we both agreed that we don't believe Google's going anywhere, although icons may change like it has the last 2 weeks. That platform's not going to go anywhere. So I'm going to open this with Acrobat Reader from my Google Drive. And again, we've mainstreamed everything together. In the past, I would print out the training agreement for the student, the training plan for the student, our final rules for co-op, if they had a parking permit. So it's four or 5 different pages. Now it's all in one shot. And again, this is our final COVID statement that's new for this year. Again, our organization created this. I would almost guarantee you, if you go to any technical school that has a co-op program in the state of Pennsylvania, it looks very, very similar to this. So you notice I don't have the students' information in here yet. I just want to show you because we linked all these fields together. So this is Lisa Hughes's training agreement. Her number is very, very similar to her employer's number. All right, she works for Carpenter Express. Carl Carpenter is our supervisor. If you notice, I typed that information into these first two fields, name and cell phone number. I link these together, it automatically populates onto the next documents. Now, even if you are not in charge of co-op for your organization, what I want you to think about is just what forms could you use to have electronic signatures with? And think about the flow. Who has to sign all these forms? What order are these forms signed in? All right. So my documents are ready to go. Now I'm going to send these for signatures. All right, I'm going to hit edit. Send for signatures. All right. So from here, I could put recipients in, and I also can, again, thinking back to your own forms, are there documents that people don't need to sign, but they need to see? I can add their email to this. So the first one I'm going to start with is Lisa Hughes. She'll be the student. I'll add Mr. Stanger. He'll be the employer because basically we all work for him anyway. And we'll add Mr. Hansel as the parent or guardian. And I'm going to add myself. All right. So I have my email addresses populated. Again, if I wanted to send this to the whole school, I could just send it to all users. What this is going to do, it's going to have the document signed in this order. So once Lisa signs it, it's going to go to Mike. Once Mike signs it, it's going to go to Walt. I'm going to get an email update, and I can also track where this document is. If I wanted to add an administrative assistant to this, I could put their email address down below. All right, and again, I've linked these fields together. Good thing I'm at home. My internet's a lot faster than school. Now, if I wanted to, I can attach every one of these fields and make them required. So if the student didn't have a work permit or didn't email me that information, I could double click on there, put the student's name in, and make it required, or the student's email. All right, so just to show you how quick this is, I should get this back from my participants by the end of this presentation. All right, so there's Lisa's going in as student. Walt will be the parent for today. And Mr. Stanger will be our boss. All right, and then the school representative will be me. And then hopefully, if this works, I'll show you the finished product at the end. Again, all these are already filled, just double check. Yep, we're good there. Tech teacher, we don't need that today. Going down, just gonna hit send. So it's gonna generate an email for me and every participant, and we'll take a look at that at the end here. All right. All this information Walt and I keep in our co-op database. And we also, to coordinate with our students, schedule Google Meets, we do their time sheets, and everything is basically through our Google Classroom. And we also use the Remind app, all right, to communicate with students. And again, although you may not be a co-op person with that signed document, just think about the forms you would use at school. For example, for our leave requests at our school, it goes to my direct supervisor, then it goes to the assistant or administrative assistant that handles attendance. Then our director signs off on it. My director right now is at this conference. So if I put a leave request in today to go visit an employer tomorrow, I'm not going to get that approval back because in a normal setting, he'd be up at State College, probably till about next Wednesday or Thursday. If we did this digitally, he could do it right from his phone. I could track where it's gone, and I can get the thumbs up that way. All right. Mr. Hansel, did I miss anything here?
No, but I'm glad you didn't click close by accident when you were
Come
doing
on.
the form.
Yeah, and if you guys could real quick, Lisa, Mike, and Walt, just check your email so I don't look like an idiot at the end of this.
I'm
Well,
not getting, I didn't get it.
All right, I'll double check that.
Okay.
I didn't get mine yet either, Ron. So,
Perfect.
Ron, do you want to elaborate on that Remind app just a little bit?
Sure. So the Remind app, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's a texting service where the students don't actually get your telephone number, and everything is logged online. Like every chat is logged online. So we make announcements. If a student's missing their paperwork, I use it mostly for my carpentry students because they're never in the same place at the same time. So usually if I have an afternoon open, I'll send a text blast because these students are they're on their phone, it's right on their hip 24/7. Where I'll say, hey, where are you guys at this afternoon? I have the afternoon, pin drop me your location and I'll come out and visit you. And to be honest with you, that's the most success I have with communicating with kids because it goes right to their cell phone versus their school email and whatnot.
Thanks, Ron.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my paperwork. One thing I want to talk about is we use very similar paperwork. Unfortunately, we have a little bit different population. I have a population that this year is the first year that they even had access to computers to take home. So there was no one-on-one with Reading High School. Many of them did not have internet access, and still they have claimed that they have given them internet access, and they have, but it's to the level where a lot of them have trouble getting on. So as much as I have tried to do a lot of very virtual things, some of the access and some of the things that I have used are not as successful. Moving forward, we're going to keep trying this. And now that we're in infancy stages of this, I feel like there's some things we're going to be moving forward on process-wise. The one thing I want to talk about on this screen, what we're doing is we currently are all virtual. We have not been back in person since last March. And the status of that probably is going to remain in effect for quite a while. So we are using fillable PDFs, as Walt and Ron are. We have a classmate system currently that does do a lot of my training plans that merge the training plans and the task lists, which is really helpful. One of the things you see on the screen right now is I do use a Google form. And I'm not going to click on that because Ron really showed you his. Ours is very similar. Google Forms work very well. What's really nice with Google Forms is you can share them with all your teachers, and your instructors can actually share them out with their students. What's really nice, I feel, instructors have more rapport with the general population of students. So I feel instructors should share out the initial forms, talk to their students about co-op. They really know who they truly want to share out, who's ready for co-op. We have 30 programs in our building, lots of instructors. I am the only co-op coordinator in our building. So I am pretty much doing this by myself. So instructors really are a big factor in helping out. So I share a lot with instructors. As far as collecting paperwork, I will tell you that my method at this point, we do not have access to DocuSign. I mentioned it. We don't have the budget for a lot of paid items for this at this point. So my job has been, I have visited students out on co-op, and I have actually gone to houses in Reading. Most of my meetings have been out on porches, 6 feet away. I have shared that with with our parents, with our students. And I will tell you that normally what happened was the paperwork would go home with students, come back with students. And over the course of the summer with our internship program and this fall, the buy-in and the student achievement with co-op has been phenomenal, with the fact that I have visited parents directly. I'm not sure if that correlation matches, but our students have been so successful this year. I have had very little students not showing up to work, not understanding what's going on, because I feel that direct connect with parents has been great. I have 30 students out, so it has been a labor of love to run and get to students. So it is a lot of work, but I feel the rewards have been there as well. I do share everything with students and instructors. This year I started sharing via, and I don't have this on here, I will share it with anybody that needs it. I share instructors with Google, with Excel sheets. So it is a Google product as well. I create a Google sheet, and on that Google sheet, what's really nice is I put the date of visit, which is monthly. I have a column for safety, attendance and punctuality, attitude, notes about the student's work, tasks accomplished on the training plan. So it shares exactly what tasks they're doing. The required log and paperwork for work-based learning. Are they doing it for me? Are they showing up for the lessons? And I also started putting a column for instructor notes. So instructors can share back and forth with me after they see their work, what's going on in their, if they have any comments about, well, I'm going to help this student with this because they struggle with this, or one of the students didn't report to their employer that he wasn't going to show up that day, and that really was a struggle for the employer. And a teacher commented on that Excel sheet, well, that's a great lesson. In fact, he's walking right by me right now. He said, that's a great lesson to share with my other students about how responsibility when you're in the workforce is important. So it gives teachers this great rapport back and forth. I'm currently building some forms in Canvas, but one thing we are moving forward, we just had a meeting with eSchool, and there's some possibilities in eSchool that I see could work with co-op in the future. They do have some signing mechanisms that I think will work in the future. So I am doing that. I also heavily use Remind. It is a requirement on some of my required things for students to sign up for. It's a great way to get in contact with students.
Hey, Lisa,
yes.
we actually have a question in the chat specifically on Remind.
Okay.
And it's asking, do employers permit students to access cell phones on the job site, specifically for the Remind app?
I tell students depends on the job site. And I will tell you I've had some students on the job that are in auto tech specifically, that they watch videos to learn something. So say they're not sure of how to do a break, employers will allow them to do that. But in general, I tell them they are not allowed to use their phones except for when they're on breaks or when they're on lunch. It should stay in their pocket. That's one of those things I shared with parents when I met them this summer, and I have absolutely had no trouble with cell phone policies at work this year. Whereas in prior years, I have had to have that discussion with students constantly. So this summer and up till this point, I have had no cell phone issues on the job site, which has been phenomenal. But I always tell students, let your employer know if you have to get on a Remind or something like that. Or I will share with an employer, hey, I'm going to be reaching out to a student today or a specific day. They might need to get on it. You need to have that communication between the employer and the student and you, because they're not supposed to be on it. And it's a safety concern. And I share that with students. if you're on a job site as a construction worker or as an auto tech and you're on your phone, you're going to get hurt. And really and truly, that's my most biggest concern as a co-op coordinator is we need you to be safe. And being on a cell phone is a safety concern. So in general, you need to communicate with your employer and step back from whatever you're doing if you feel you need to get on that remind. So I really stress no cell phones unless I share it with the employer and say, today at 2 o'clock, that student may have to, or today I'm going to be reaching out to that student. You know, you might need to let him check his email between 12 and 1 when he's eating lunch. But in general, no, I don't let them, I tell them that it's usually company policy that you're not supposed to be on that phone, and it's a safety risk. And we all are in this together, that we want you to be safe. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and when, just to piggyback on that, when I go out with my construction students, I usually send a message to either the employer or the foreman or supervisor, whoever the student is with on that day, just a heads up that I'm going to be out and about, and just to have the student check his phone real quick. If you're upfront with them, it's fine. And especially most of our employers, even during this time, the people are so desperate to have good employees that I've had some say to me, listen, if he's got to take a class from the work truck and sit on a Zoom meeting for 30, 45 minutes, I'm completely fine with that.
So I'm gonna keep going. We are required to have monthly meetings. I'm doing that via Zoom. I'm recording. I'm making them check in on the chat. I'm recording their login time, and to make sure that they are on every day. I'm actually, last Monday I had a check-in, and I actually had 4 check-in times to give them some sense of choice because of the fact that they're working on different schedules. So we want to keep moving because we are going to run out of time. I'm going to talk very quickly about work permits. Remember, work permits are required for anybody 18 and under the age of 18. There are fillable ones at the PCEA website. Please check it out. They can get them at all their schools. And if you need any more information, please reach out to us. We'll share any information that you have on that. I don't know, Ron, are you going to just talk real quick about?
Oh, okay. I thought I was going up to, no, that's fine.
Oh.
So there's just a couple things that need to be in place, just to refresh your course. If we're placing a minor in a facility, their direct supervisor has to have 3 child clearances, just like you would as a teacher. The only difference here is most districts or CTC centers allow the employer to get volunteer background checks, so they don't cost anything, and they're good for 5 years. And we just keep these on file, locked up at school. So that's just another thing that we just have to make sure is in place with the child clearances. And then the new COVID stuff, like you said, here's just an example of another. This, I believe, is Lisa's COVID waiver. Again,
Yep.
Very similar to what we do, just to make sure that the parents are aware that, you know, what's going on. I mean, unless they've lived under a rock.
And I wanted to add to that, Ron, as I had mentioned too in the very beginning, liability insurance is part of 339 for all work-based learning programs. Now with COVID-19, as Mr. Martino had just showed, and one of Lisa's forms is that's an added layer of liability protection, is that consent form because of COVID-19. But liability insurance is always part of any approved program. And that is all part of work-based learning throughout the Commonwealth. Now with COVID-19, we have this added problem, as you can well see. Okay.
All right, very quickly, this is, and we're not going to click on all of these, but I'm going to tell you, this is a website that I feel anybody that's on here can use. There's a couple of them, and when we share the presentation, we will share it with anybody. If you look, last year we had to develop a website with all kinds of different things. We have different employability skills we have to do. What I'd like you to do, Ron, real quick, is just click on the link that has work-based learning capstone up in the black up. Yep. There's lots of things on here. If he scrolls down, all of the capstones are on there. Along with the capstones, there's a fillable PDF of the capstone. Plus, underneath it, I'm going to do a shout out to one of our instructional assistants. Colleen Russo was willed to me last year, and we worked on this. We looked up TED Talks that matched it, articles that would work for it. So each capstone lesson has something below it that's an article or a TED Talk that matches it, and you can click on, and there's a wealth of information on here that anybody can take. It's a public website. Please use it for whatever you have. There's ESSA things that we are doing as a school, and there's videos that I created on Screencastify that will help you with all kinds of different things. And if you look, there's others. Central Monco has one. The PCEA website is on there, and lots of good information for anybody to use.
Lisa, do me a favor, check your email.
Okay, I will.
So one of the several hats that we wear at being co-op coordinators, some of us are in charge of NOCTI, some of us are in charge of OAC. It's funny that Lisa Walt and I are actually both in charge of all in charge of recruiting. So pre-COVID, what we would do for middle school recruiting in September, we would gather student ambassadors, the leaders in our student population, and schedule 12 middle school presentations. Our technical school is feeded by 12 middle schools. During the month of October, we'd go out to each middle school, do a presentation. We would bring an ambassador that actually went to that middle school, and we would send an open house mailer towards the end of October to invite the students and their families to our November open house. At our open house night, that's the first night the application is actually available. Obviously, we can't do that this year, and like anything else, we had to reinvent the wheel. Since Walt and I took over, we're in a very, very lucky position at Bucks County Technical High School where we take in more applications than seats are available. Walt and I took over during the yellow years. So what are we doing this year? You know, like anybody else, you had to put different hats on. You know, we became actors, video editors, sound technicians, and website designers. And I could put these links in the chat. We created an 8th grade informational video through Screencastify that our middle school counselors rolled out to their population. We created an informational 8th grade website, scheduled 12 middle school meetings, and followed up with question and answer sessions with 8th graders on Zoom. All right. We still sent out our open house mailer. What our application was actually posted today. So just to show you quickly what that 8th grade site looks like. And again, Walt and I were looking at each other, not to drive our tech person crazy, trying to figure this out on our own. So we have an informational video on the technical high school. Then the application information, they could download the application and fill it out. There's a quick video on a step-by-step how to fill the application out. A frequently asked questions section over here, where we can direct students 9 times out of 10. Most of their questions are going to be answered from here. And then just at the bottom, some things that are happening not only in the state of Pennsylvania, but nationwide in career and tech ed. The first article is on one of our graduates that's actually a professor now for the University of Rhode Island. A quick video from Kevin Fleming that I'm sure you guys are familiar with, and we all know who Mike Rowe is as well. So again, we didn't want to, you know, with all this digital stuff that we created, the forms, the digital signatures, and this information website, we didn't want to, and it's going to come off wrong saying this, but we didn't want to waste the pandemic. We wanted to utilize this and really assess on what we do and what can we do better. After creating this website, Walt and I looked at each other and we're like, damn, we should have had this for the last 7 years. Like, it's a one-stop shopping spot for students, parents, guardians, middle school counselors to gain all the information on the school and gain what our application process looks like. And again, Walt, if you could throw those 2 sites up on the chat, that would be awesome.
Which sites did you want me to throw up there, Ron? I'm sorry.
Just our main site and that masterpiece Vimeo presentation that you and I created, that fine piece of cinematic photography, cinematic.
You got it. I'll throw them in there.
Thanks, buddy. And then, Lisa, I believe you do something very, very similar. Again, you just use a different platform.
Yeah, so I'm gonna very quickly, if I can, we'll see if I can do this quickly because I know we're running out of time. I'm gonna,
Do you want the screen?
I'm gonna try to share my screen. Ron, can you tell me, is my screen, can you see the
I
Nearpod?
can. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Lisa.
Q&A
What
chat.
we've done, and I'm going to give Barbara Perez, who is our school counselor, her and I have worked together to recruit for the last couple years. I always think she's very organized and she does most of the recruiting, and her and I kind of create different things. We've done more of a game version over the last couple years. So we again had to do the same thing. We wanted something interactive. So we looked at an interactive website called Nearpod. And I just want to show you, and I've used Nearpod for different things as well. So back on the one screen, Nearpod is a very cool thing. I'm gonna just do a preview just to show you our presentation. And Barbara did say I could show this, so just be aware. Nearpod is kind of, it gives you a way to share with students. You have the control, but the students view it and can view different things. So I'm just going to go through some of the things. I'm going to do it very quickly to show you, so you can embed videos. The students will watch the video on their own screen, hear what's going on. You can embed, I want to go through very quickly because you can embed different ways for students to see it. So these are our different clusters. If you notice, there's videos, there's pictures. So we have our ambassadors coming into Zoom with us, and they're actually going to talk about different things. You see how in our health cluster, the body parts come up. There's different ways to look at it. We have in our culinary arts, I just want to get to one of the games. You can embed games into this system. It's a really neat way to teach, by the way, as well. Let me get back here to one of our games, and then I'm going to move forward. This is our culinary cosmetology, and here's a memory test. So just so you know, this is a memory test that the kids actually can play themselves. And they just play the game until and then you as an instructor, you actually have them move with you. So they play the game, you give them as much time as you want. There's ways to have them interact and put on a board. There's ways that you can have them answer questions. It's a very neat platform that we're using with our 8th graders and in the classrooms to do our recruitment. So I'm gonna stop my screen sharing and head back to Ron, and he can finish and screen share himself, and we can finish the presentation.
We have a question in the chat regarding hybrid starting the year. The school had a major issue with students going to work for a full day instead of doing classwork on the virtual days. Did anyone else have similar issues? And if so, how did you fix this? I guess, I can start with that. I mean, every school's operating a little differently. Our school in particular in Bucks County, we actually follow our actual bell schedule and everything with our classes. So, we also still monitor our students' attendance, and attendance is a big part of our cooperative education program, where if they're not coming to their classes and they're being marked absent, that's going to put their co-op placement in jeopardy. So we make sure that that's clear with our students. We haven't had any real issues that we've been made aware of for the time being. So
No, and just to back up what Walt's saying, if it's a co-op student, I would go directly to the employer. If you just have a student that has a traditional part-time job that's working during school hours, I would just suggest to continue to mark the kid absent.
Yeah, I agree. I'm right in the same method as Ron and Walt, same deal. And some people come to me, like we've had some students that actually were in a regular traditional job and they were missing, and I'd work with the instructor and say, hey, if they're working in a job that we can make co-op, let's talk to that student and say, let's make this official and let's make this co-op so you're not missing school and you're not going to get fined and you're not missing class. So sometimes it's kind of a win-win that it could lead to a co-op placement, but they have to come to school. And some employers need to understand, one thing I share with my employers is the small abstract about the rules, especially under 18, that they're only allowed to work so many hours. And some employers don't understand the child labor laws and what's required. And they need to understand that. So
yeah, 28 hours during the school week is what they're supposed to be doing. And then they're allowed to do 8 hours each on Saturday and Sunday. So.
Yep. But with co-op, you get exemptions to those child labor laws where a student under 18 can work up to 8 hours per day while they're participating in a supervised program with a certified cooperative education coordinator.
And as we also didn't mention, you have to remember, like Ron has talked about carpentry, there are hazardous orders to some of these programs out there. So there is an exemption because they are on co-op, because it's considered a training program. So those are the things that have to be remembered as well. So that all falls under the child labor laws. So it is important to remember that. So they are getting that exemption because they are on co-op in regards to those programs such as carpentry, auto mech, and those programs where hazards do exist.
Yeah, I see a lot of questions about links for the entire presentation. And you guys, Erin, if you're still on, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure these are all available at the conclusion of the conference.
Yes, they will be. We'll send links out for each of the sessions and folks can then access.
Okay.
Materials.
And if not, if you guys have specific questions, feel free, you can email me personally. I don't want to talk for everybody else, but you can email me personally if you have any questions. Just don't send me any political stuff, please.
Same for me. And I want to apologize because for some reason or another, I'm not getting that email to sign those docs. I'm not sure if it's something with my IT.
I have little fat sausage fingers. I probably typed the.
Sometimes we're shut down here a little bit too, so it might be me. But one thing I want to share, and I'm sure the other two guys would share, is you really have to love your job to do what we all do, teachers, educators, because there's a lot of different things we all do. There's hats that we wear that we don't wear. We reach out to employers, we reach out to educators in our home schools. I tutor kids in math and English if they need it. I always tell my co-op students, when you sign that co-op form, you become a part of my class as well as other classes. So whatever you need from me is what I'll help you with. So they need to be aware that I always, the whole thing about being a part of a village is so true. That's what we are. And, all of us would help anybody. And that's the only way we're all successful, is if we help each other.
All right. Hey, Lisa, I know we're going to have to wrap up here because they like to be done at 5 of. I'm going to do my little plug for the Pennsylvania Cooperative Education Association, if that's okay.
Yep,
I can jump in real quick. I'm the current president of our Pennsylvania Cooperative Education Association. It kind of funny that I started out in a year then the COVID hit. I was kind of coasting along, but we do monthly meetings with our PCEA members. Our membership has grown during this COVID time. If you have any interest in being a member, it's like a $25 annual dues. Next year it's going up to $50, but we manage our own website now, and that's pretty much what our dues covers, is the operation of our website. We put a lot of resources and we share a lot of things through our website for our members. And also we've been conducting monthly meetings, and the next one is November 19th. So if you have any interest in joining the association, you can go to our website. It's www.pacea.org. And there's a link there that you can click to get the membership information, or you can just reach out to me. My email is in the chat and it's also in the slides. I'm happy to answer any questions or help you with any of that.